Tuesday, April 5th on the Mayo Media Network. My name is Cecil Peters. I will be your host for today's 10-game slate. With so many games, we will just get right into it. As usual, if you can please be sure to hit like on the video and subscribe wherever it is you are listening or watching. And in the comment section on YouTube, please just leave a comment with your current favorite for the Stanley Cup this year. Right now, we're talking homer favorites. I'm obviously going to lean towards the Calgary Flames, but I'm also pretty big on the Pittsburgh Penguins right now. They've been playing pretty well. They were one of my picks last time we did this, and I see no reason to go away from the Pittsburgh Penguins right now. Played really well against Colorado on the weekend, and as you'll see, they got a rematch with the Avalanche coming up here, so good test to see how Pittsburgh fares against a top team in the West. Played pretty well against the East all year, so right now, out of the West, Colorado the easy call, but I would also lean towards the Flames and then Pittsburgh in the Eastern Conference. First game of the night, we are going to start with a banger. Already teased you with the Colorado-Pittsburgh matchup, but this one puts it to shame. We have the Ottawa Senators -110 in Montreal against the Montreal Canadiens, also -110. Obviously, two teams, bit of a downward spiral to end the year. They're both out of the playoff picture. But Ottawa's been scoring lately. Hat-trick for Josh Norris in a win over Detroit last game. They actually had two consecutive 5-2 wins over the Red Wings. Matthew Joseph got a hat-trick in the first game. His center, Josh Norris, got one last game. So if they were playing the Wings today, I would say 5-2 win. Brady Tkachuk makes it with a hat-trick. Get the whole line on the board with the hat-tricks there. But since it's a new opponent, maybe that trend ends. But I expect a big game from that first line. Tons of momentum. And you know, just for the coincidence narrative, whatever you want to call it, probably going to bet on Brady Tkachuk to get over 2.5 goals in this game. Why not? He's seen his line mates get hat-tricks the last couple times. It's time for Brady to match up with that. So that's really the only thing of excitement for me in this game, is to see if he can do that. -110, I will take the Ottawa Senators to beat the Canadiens. Montreal lost 3 of their last 4 games. They did beat the Tampa Bay Lightning in a shootout last game, 5-4, but that was more of a case of they ran into the Lightning's backup goalie. Wasn't overly impressed with their game. Haven't really been overly impressed with their game all season long. Ottawa playing decent right now. I will lean towards the Sens in a pick there. Next game, Carolina Hurricanes -240 in Buffalo. Buffalo home dogs +195. We know a few things about these teams now. We know Carolina going to dominate possession all game. They're going to outshoot the Sabres probably in a pretty big way, probably something like 35-20, 40-25, something like that. Carolina will take more shots. We also know this hasn't led them to big margins of victory all season long. Sometimes it does, but there's also been games where they fire a ton of shots on net and they just can't seem to score, even against bad opponents. We also know that Buffalo's going to fight right until the end. They've gone to overtime a ton lately. Their games are always close at the end. If they're losing by a couple, they'll generally score themselves back into the game. If they're leading, they'll generally allow the other team to get back in the game. So I think this game is going to be close in the third period, probably a 1-goal game in the third. And you're telling me you can get a team around +200 at home in a game that should be close late. At the big plus odds, I got to take a stab at the Sabres. They probably won't win this game. They're obviously overmatched. But Carolina has a tendency to make opposing goalies look good recently. Buffalo's been playing really well. I will take the Sabres at almost +200. Next game is in New Jersey. We got the Devils +140. New York Rangers -160. New Jersey just keeps getting let down with goaltending. Brutal collapse against Florida over the weekend. They were winning 6-2, ended up losing 7-6. Also lost 4-3 to the Islanders the next day. So they're definitely kind of slumping to end the year, but I really do pin that mostly on the goalies. Their play has been not bad. Up front, they're getting good offense. Jack Hughes is playing well. Nico Heischer's playing well. They're just getting offense up and down the lineup. So there are promising signs with the New Jersey Devils. Rangers have also been slumping a little bit. They've lost back-to-back games. They got shut out by the Islanders. They were down 3-0 to the Flyers before coming back, but eventually lost that game in a shootout. Igor Shesterkin's been fine, but he hasn't been the heart-level goalie that we saw earlier in the year. Talks of fatigue have begun. This is the most he's ever played in a pro season. He hasn't even had that big of a workload just for him. He's never been a full-time #1 goalie in the NHL. Back in the KHL, obviously shorter season, so he just hasn't had this big of a workload. He's getting close to 50 games for the year. Probably with the Rangers kind of figuring that out, I sense that they'll probably give him some rest down the stretch here. They do have a playoff spot locked up, but they're still in a battle for positioning in the first round. They would like to catch Carolina. That seems unlikely. So probably just battling for that second seed in the Metro Division, wanting to get home ice in the first round. So they are going to want to roll Shesterkin out, but getting him rested, getting him ready for the playoffs is equally important. And for this game, I do think the Devils outplay the Rangers, especially in New Jersey, and it's just a matter of them getting the saves. Tough to bank on it, but at plus 140, I'm going to take the New Jersey Devils to win. And with the goaltending on both sides right now, the way it's been, I'm going to take the over as well. Next game is in Florida. We got a great matchup here. Atlantic Division Beasts. Toronto on the second half of a back-to-back. They played in Tampa Bay the night before. I am recording this before that game, so I'm not really sure what happened, but they are plus 150 on the road in Florida. Florida minus 175 home favorites. You don't win in Florida very often. They don't lose a lot at home, but the Toronto Maple Leafs, really strong team at plus 150. This is the opening line. I don't know if that stays there or not. But if the Toronto Maple Leafs are plus 150, I have to take it against pretty much any team in the league. This is the top team in the league right now, Florida and Colorado, top team in their conference at least. And even then, plus 150 just seems like a slam dunk on the Leafs. They might not win, but it should be an even game. Toronto really plays down to the level of their opponents a bunch. They've lost to Buffalo, Arizona, teams like that. They just don't bring their best game. Usually a team that loses to Buffalo, I'm not interested in betting to beat Florida, but the way that the Maple Leafs play, they play down to the level of their opponents, but they also play up in the same way. So when they face really good opponents, you saw it recently with Boston. They came into Boston and they won that game. You saw it with Florida actually a couple weeks ago. Florida came into Toronto. Toronto won that game pretty handily. So when they do play these good teams, they play pretty well. So plus 150, hard to ignore the Toronto Maple Leafs. Goaltending on Florida has been decent for the last bit, but Bobrovsky was shaky in his last game, getting pulled. Spencer Knight's been okay, but not fantastic. So regardless of, I don't know what they're going to do in net for Florida, but I do think both goalies are beatable. So overall, the game's probably a toss-up, and solid plus money on either side is naturally going to be a good bet. I don't think plus 150 will last, but if you see plus 150 on the Leafs, you got to take it. Next game, as mentioned off the top, we have the Pittsburgh Penguins against the Colorado Avalanche. This game's a pick right now, minus 110 for both sides. Rematch from a Saturday afternoon game between two of these teams. Colorado ended up winning that one. I'm quite high on the Penguins overall. They're my current pick to come out of the Metro, current pick to come out of the Eastern Conference, as I mentioned. And they played Colorado really well in their last game. Back-to-back between two good teams. I'm usually going to always go to the loser of the first game in the second game. It's really hard to beat a team like Pittsburgh twice in a row, just like it's really hard to beat a team like Colorado twice in a row. So it was one of the most exciting games of the year. I do expect that to continue. There were a couple times where Pittsburgh had really good chances, most notably Jake Gunsel to score, and puck just rolled off the stick on one attempt. He just missed the net on another. So I think he rebounds, he probably scores in this game, and it's just Pittsburgh's not a team that's going to miss those chances often. They're going to want to make this statement win over Colorado. Kind of like the Rangers, they are fighting for that second spot in the Metro Division to get home ice advantage in the first round of the playoffs. So I'm going to take the Pittsburgh Penguins at minus 110 over Colorado. Next game, Columbus plus 105 in Philadelphia, minus 125 for the Flyers. Staying as far away from this game as I can. If I had to pick, I would just take the plus money. Right now it's on Columbus, but thankfully you don't have to bet every game. This is one that I am staying away from. Two teams just kind of limping to the finish line. Philly's popped in a couple random spots lately. Put up a few goals against Toronto. I think they lost 6-3, but they were down and they came back to tie it at 3 at one point. They were up 3-0 on the Rangers and ended up letting the Rangers come back into that game. They were up big on Nashville a week ago and they let Nashville come back into that one. So Philly can score. Philly can also get scored on, but you just never really know what's going to happen. And even stringing a whole solid 60 minutes together seems to be a problem. But their opponent here, Columbus, has lost 6 in a row and are pretty clearly falling off the map. So back-to-back for them as well. Hard to bet on this game. Simply staying away. Next game is in Detroit. Boston Bruins minus 195 at Detroit. Slam dunk bet on Boston for me here. They played in Columbus last night, but I'm not too worried about that. Shouldn't be too tough of a win for them. 1A, 1B goalie situation for the Bruins means there's not a drop-off in net in back-to-back situations. And their forward lines are super deep. We got Marchand and Bergeron on the first line. Eric Hall playing great as a second-line center. He's red hot with Pasternak and Taylor Hall on his wings. This has been a huge advantage, just kind of keeping Pasternak off that checking line, allowing him to focus solely on offense. And then the third line with Charlie Coyle and Craig Smith is also rock solid. Detroit is just not going to have an answer for the solid 3-line attack of the Boston Bruins. Minus 195, I'll probably turn that into to win in regulation bet on the Bruins. Next game is in Nashville. Right now, this one's a pick'em. I think that changes. Minnesota is minus 110. Nashville's minus 110. Minnesota continues to be red hot, dominating most games, getting great goaltending. Impressive win over Carolina this weekend. Nashville slowed down a little bit despite them being at home. It's hard to take them at even running against a team that's just clearly better than them right now. Minnesota's been good at home or on the road on their recent hot stretch. Kaprizov is scoring a ton. Kevin Fiala is playing pretty well. So strong goaltending for Minnesota. Nashville slumping a little bit. It's hard to ignore the form of the Wild at minus 110. If that stays, I would bet them. I'd probably bet them up to minus 120, and after that, I would just stay away from the game overall. Next game of the night is in Dallas. Plus 120 are the New York Islanders. Minus 145 for the home Dallas Stars. Very disappointing performance for Dallas against Seattle, losing 4-1. They kind of just did what they always do. They generated chances to score. They just can't seem to bury them. Robertson had a great chance to tie the game. Miro Heiskanen had a great chance to tie the game. They get a ton of chances. They just can't seem to bury them. And then they'll have games where everything goes in the net. The top line will score a ton. I do think they're talented enough to justify them as a home favorite in this game. But minus 145 seems like the correct line. So if it stays there, I will not be betting it. New York finally got some offense from somebody other than Brock Nelson or Anders Lee last game, with J.G. Pajot getting a hat trick against the Devils. Kind of a nice change up for them just to get somebody else on the scoreboard. Main thing you got to do against Dallas is just shut down that top line of Roope Hintz, Jason Robertson, and Joe Pavelski. Like I said, they're either going to get shut down and miss their chances, or they're going to score 3 or 4. At home, I will lean towards the Dallas side. I think they will probably score a couple with that line. They have to. They got nothing else behind them, really. It doesn't seem like any other line wants to grab the reins and take over the offense. So first line or bust, but I think in this game, the first line will do enough. Last game of the night is in San Jose. Opening line was Edmonton minus 180, San Jose plus 145. That probably changes. I can't see Edmonton staying there. They've been on red hot right now. They're scoring a ton of goals. I think they'll get closer to minus 200, and honestly, it's probably fine to bet them even at minus 200. San Jose is allowing a ton of offense, so McDavid should be able to add to his lead-leading points total. Draisaitl was right behind him. Draisaitl hit the 50-goal mark against Anaheim last game, so he's red hot. McDavid's red hot. They're putting up a ton of points. McDavid is making a run for the Hart Trophy, which he's now kind of jumped into a tie with Austin Matthews as the favorite. So by the time this game starts, I think the odds will be much heavier on the Oilers. They'll probably be minus 200. If you can get them at minus 180, I would suggest that you get that as soon as you can. And that's just a simple, easy way to end the night. Thank you, as always, for watching, and we will be back tomorrow to go over Wednesday's games.